Howdy folks, it's Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here, taking a look at your tropical update for June 22nd of 2020, brought by the good folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling. As we look out across the open Atlantic, where do we usually look this time of the year? Well, here we are in June, looking out across parts of the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and just off of the East Coast for development. Now, as we get into July, we do start to look a little further out. And, since we're kind of getting toward the end of June, this is where we're going to start to look more and more. So let's take a peek. What does it look like? Well, into the Gulf of Mexico, we do have a pretty decent flare-up of thunderstorm activity, but it's not associated with anything tropical. We've got pretty barren Caribbean. In fact, the only place where we've got any semblance of development is a little farther off to the north. And look at this thing. Now, this is hot off the presses. This is subtropical depression number 4. The National Hurricane Center is a little wishy-washy on if they think this is going to develop further into a tropical storm. But you can see that it is getting itself wrapped up pretty good in here. If you need a little bit of help finding it, it's right in there. There it is. And it's wrapping itself up north of Bermuda. This isn't going to bother anybody over land, but it may kind of get in the way of some of the shipping channels as we head through the next couple of days. I'll say this about what's happening down into the tropics, pretty barren. Now, we were talking last week about the African dust doing a good number, and we got a lot of it. You can kind of see some of the dry air in here. This is outlined by the gray. That's what's left over of that first plume, but we've got another plume out here, and you can see it start to kind of push its way across parts of the Atlantic as we head through later in the week. This is by Friday morning. Notice, and like I always say with the 700 millibar moisture 850 vorticity map, which is anywhere you've got this kind of grayed out area on here. I mean, and look at this, takes up nearly the entire Atlantic basin. Anytime you've got this, you're not getting tropical development underneath that. Now, once you clear out of that, well, yeah, sure, you can get something maybe fired up, but here we go through Sunday. Look at this. This is just, it's everywhere. It's in the Gulf of Mexico. It's down to the Caribbean, into the open Atlantic. We get a little bit of a break, and then we got more dry air back in behind that. So what we need to happen if you want to have tropical development, which I don't know anybody that does, but if you need it to happen, you would want to start making little pushes in here to erode away at some of this dry air. And kind of shrink it down a little bit, and then you may see development. Now, as we head through time, does that happen anywhere? Well, yeah, actually, it starts to happen into the Gulf of Mexico as we head through kind of July 1st. And I will say this, a lot of the ensemble models, and that's not what we're looking at here, does show something kind of in the Central American gyre area, probably not a gyre, but in that same ballpark geographically. That may try and get better developed as we head into the early parts of July. Now, the prevailing flow is going to shove that thing into Mexico or kind of curlicue it back around to the northeast if, and this is a big if anything is to develop. Now, back in behind that, we've got a little bit of dry air, but not much, before the next big plume of dry air that gets pushed off of Africa makes its way into the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. So there's kind of a brief window in there where we maybe see something, but so far it's still up in the may and maybe category. So there's a look at your tropical update for June 22nd of 2020, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling.